Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Voice of PANZ. I am your host, Asim Mukhtar. I have a co host with me, Rizwan Ali. I'll bring him onto the screen. Welcome, Rizwan.
Thank you, Asim. Hello, Assalamu alaikum, everyone.
Thank you very much, Rizwan, for joining. Would you like to tell our viewers what they are going to expect from the next 30-40 minutes? What is the topic of the discussion today?
So today we have two amazing member of parliament from New Zealand Parliament, and let me introduce our first guest, Ingrid Leary. Please bring her on screen, please. Ingrid,
Assalamualaikum.
welcome, salam. Ingrid is a Labour member of Parliament of Tiri. Ingrid became MP for Tiri in October 2020. Ingrid sits on Finance, Expenditure, Foreign Affairs, Defence, Trade Select Committee, and she is co-chair of Commonwealth Women Parliamentarian NZ Group. Ingrid, I welcome you on Voice of PANZ program.
Our next guest for today is Ibrahim Omer. Ibrahim Omer is a list MP for Labour, and his motto is I want everyone who has been in my position to have a better shot at a decent life. I welcome Umar Ibrahim on the screen as well. Hi Umar, can you hear us?
Salam alaikum. Yes, Asim, I can hear you.
Walaikum assalam. Thank you very much. And I'll ask Rizwan to start the program officially today.
Ingrid, can you please update our viewers on the sad incident that happened at Otago Girls High School last week? Any updates, anything new we can hear from you?
Yes, thank you for the question. First, I really want to just say that I'm so sorry that this really distressing alleged assault happened in my electorate. It's an incredibly serious event, and there's not much we can say about it as it's under police investigation, but it is being taken incredibly seriously, and I know the hurt that it has caused not only physically to Huda, the girl involved, and the other girls, but the emotional harm, the spiritual harm, the everything that happened was just so painful. And I've been around the community and I've felt their pain, and I think of my own daughter who's nearly the same age as Huda. So I just want to acknowledge that first. The updates are that there has been meetings with community members, the school, the police, other stakeholders and so on, and there is now a judicial process going on and a Ministry of Education process. So there's not much we can say about the specific incident, though of course you would have seen the petition and a lot of emotion in different parts of the community calling for justice. So my view is that we need to allow the process to take place, that judicial process has to take place. What I would like to see, though, is I would like to see an independent inquiry that looks at really what happened from a context, from a cultural context, from a religious context, so that something like this never, ever happens again to anybody in Aotearoa, New Zealand.
Thank you very much,
for the update.
Yeah, my next question from Ibrahim. Ibrahim, what are your thoughts on this incident and how could this have been avoided?
Thank you, Asim. Can I first acknowledge my colleague Ingrid, who I think from Friday night she was on the phone with people, updating people, and she's the one who alerted me onto this incident on Friday night, and me and her since then we've been communicating. I think Ingrid has done a fantastic job in terms of supporting the community on the ground, and obviously this is a very, very sad incident. And a very serious incident as well. And what happened to these girls is not justified at all by any count. After what happened on March 15, I think the community hasn't yet recovered from March 15, and we're still going through the grieving process. And the Royal Commission staff, the report, the 44 recommendations that came out, still asks to any potential discrimination, racism that happen in this place or takes place in this country to be addressed. And we've been going through the process of, like, for example, the social cohesion and the cohesion and inclusion. And there's a whole lot of work that's underway in this space. But what happened in Christchurch, it cannot be justified by any counts. I think community leaders, jumped on, and I think expressed their anger, their frustration. The whole Muslim community, not just the Syrian community in Dunedin, but I think the whole Muslim community, we were outraged and upset. And it cannot be justified. In saying that, I think that's as far as they can go, because there is a two investigation that's underway. The school is conducting its own investigation, and the police is also investigating. So hopefully we will get to see the outcome of this investigation, and we'll be able to comment on this. But I have been with Dr. Muhammad on the phone, who is the leader of the community on the ground in Dunedin, and he reiterated that there is a process underway, and I think to some extent, while there is a frustration and anger and the fact that this could happen to our girls, but there is also understanding of, I think the community have received a lot of support. Obviously, the issue has gone global. I just wanted to make one point clear here that this is a sad incident. Yes, there is a motivation with what these girls have done to these girls. There is a motivation behind, but at the same time, this is not the Muslim community under attack in New Zealand. I just wanted to make this point because I can see that this issue have made it global. I was just reading Al Jazeera Arabic today. It's also reported. So millions of people have seen this. It's very sad. It shouldn't have happened, and there is a lot of work to do to address discrimination and racism in New Zealand. But at the same time, it's also the Muslim community very much is still safe in New Zealand. We're all going on about our daily jobs every day. But in saying that, I don't want to downplay that we still have issues in this country that needs to be addressed.
Thank you very much. And we obviously condemn this kind of incident and hope that there's a concrete investigation carried out, and then we actually translate that learnings into the society so that this kind of event doesn't happen again. God forbid if this happens again, what should the other parents should do in this kind of situation? What are your thoughts, and what is your advice to these parents if they get involved into this kind of event and this happens to their girls or the boys at the school?
Ingrid, do you want to go first, or you want me to go?
It's a question to you, Ibrahim.
Okay. Well, look, I obviously want every single parent to be involved in the school, to be close to teachers, to close what's happening to their kids very, very closely. If something like this happen, obviously this is not just going to be the parents, it's going to be on all of us at the community. We're going to have to respond. The way to respond is basically engage in dialogue. And I think we need education in terms of as a Muslim man, I wanted to know about other cultures, about other phases, and I think we need to teach our kids about other phases and the cultures. Yes, we might be people of different phases and the cultures, but we are also human beings. I think getting engaged with the schools, getting engaged with the Ministry of Education. The Ministry of Education, I think, needs to put some resources in terms of teaching kids about diversity, about multiculturalism, about phases, about religions, about everything really. Even our kids, as a Muslim kids, they need to know about other cultures and phases as well. So I think there is no one clear answer to that, Asim. But I don't want this to happen again. I hope that this is the last incident, but if it does happen, I think the dialogue is the way to go about it. We need to talk.
If I may add to that, and also just to acknowledge Ibrahim, my colleague, it is such a privilege to be able to do a conversation like this and know that we have colleagues who are Muslim, who have a shared experience of the members of our community that we're trying to support. So I really just want to acknowledge Ibrahim for standing alongside me as the electorate MP. That's so important. And also picking up on his point about education, one of the things that came out of the Royal Commission report was the government's need to be much more proactive in the space of teaching intercultural dialogue and education. And in fact, we have put learning resources into schools in Auckland and Wellington, and I'm really looking forward to seeing those resources come down to Dunedin and Christchurch where they're really needed. I would like to see that fast-tracked, and I'll be talking to colleagues about that because we have recognised, the government has recognised the need to be much more proactive. The resources are being created, and now we just need to make them accessible. I suppose the other point I'd like to pick up on is that for not speaking about this particular case, but I think just if we look at intercultural dialogue in our schools generally, Auckland is, I think, the fourth most diverse city in the world per head of population. The rest of New Zealand is following suit. So we have a fantastic opportunity to learn from each other. And what I would like to see is that the communities engage with the schools, and that's a co-creation process so that everybody gets involved. It gets parents a chance to be involved with their kids' education, to find out who the kids are mixing with and what faiths and what religions, so that actually the parents also get some of the learning through the children. We have that opportunity in New Zealand because we have a small population, and I think one of the great things that could come out of this really distressing event, when we find out what really happened, and I'll park that to one side because we can't comment on that, but clearly there is a need for us to grab this opportunity for much more learning and much more engagement with each other, and not expect our children to come into a dominant culture situation and have to assimilate, but rather to be able to be enriched by each other.
Ingrid, these kids definitely and the wider community in Otago are going through trauma. And what support, we are talking about the resources, what support is available to cope up with these things and continue with that question? So where they can look for the emotional and psychological counseling? Do we have the resources available, or where they can look for?
Certainly, I have stepped in to support the Muslim community, and I absolutely see the need for that support. I know that the Race Relations Office has said they are available, and I really hope that the community and the school will reach out to that office because they have specialist advice available. There are counselling services available at the school. I would like to see through the Ministry of Education that those counselling services are provided by people who have an aligned faith base or aligned cultural base. So I think there's more work to be done in that sphere. But these are certainly things that we are looking at the moment, and I know the Ministry of Education is working really hard to get support available to the girls.
Okay.
I think what I would add to what Ingrid said is I think Ingrid really covered the question really well. But I think what I would add is I think Huda and her friends are now going to need some counseling going forward. I think they will be terrified to go back to school. I know that they're already back. But I think it's going to take really a long time for them to heal from what happened. So culturally and religiously appropriate counseling is gonna be they're gonna need that. After the Christchurch incident, I think some Muslim psychologists came together and established what they call the Muslim Psychologists of New Zealand, and I met quite a few of them, amazing people. I think if the school is wanted to provide Huda and her friends with counseling, I think they need to reach out to the psychologists, and they can provide culturally and religiously appropriate advice and support to this young woman as they go on with their life. Because what happened is awful, it's traumatic, it's gonna take time for them to heal.
May I also say that let's remember that all of the people who are allegedly involved in this incident, in fact, the whole school is now involved. They are students, they are children still, or young women, and there are some very vulnerable people, and certainly even people who were not directly impacted may be feeling vulnerable. So this has a big ripple effect. I think because of some of the responses that people have been very emotional in their responses, that there may be teachers at the school who need support. There may be all sorts of people in the situation who need support, and what we need to do is look at where those gaps are and provide the support to everybody that needs it, especially the survivors of the alleged assault, but also to others, so that everybody can move through from a place of we need justice, we need safety, we need healing, and we need belonging. And if we can get to belonging for everyone, that's wonderful. But there are many vulnerable people through this situation, and I can't comment directly on it, but I would want to see support for everybody, because if we outcast people and don't support people, something like this will happen again. That is why we need an inclusive society. That's why we need the education. That's why we need people to learn from each other. Because if we become positional, it's going to result in hatred rather than in the love and the peace that we all seek. Having said that, I know that there is no peace without justice, so it's getting both of those things happening at the same time in a safe way.
Thank you very much, Ingrid. My next question is again, it's about the inclusiveness and social cohesion. In your personal capacity, what are the steps you are taking to promote the inclusiveness and social cohesion? And then talk on behalf of the government as well, that what proactive steps will be taken or have been taken previously to promote this social cohesion within the New Zealand society?
Well, it's probably, that is my kaupapa. That's what gets me out of bed in the morning, and that's why I've chosen to become a member of parliament. Is my whole life has been about bringing voices to the table of those who haven't necessarily had a voice or had a seat at the table, and that was through my work in journalism as a lawyer and then with the British Council. So I am a member of the ethnic caucus. I'm very privileged to be a member through my Dutch heritage. I have Pacifica children, and I can see the inequities that happen in our society that are often done very unconsciously. It's not just unconscious bias, but particularly the structural racism. For one, let's call it what it is. There is structural racism. That is why I joined the Labour Party. That is why I'm a member of Parliament, and I see one of my key roles being a European member of the ethnic caucus is to be a bridge for mainstreaming of some of the voices, for being a supporter, being an ally to my ethnic caucus colleagues and my Māori and Pacifica colleagues, until we have voices at the tables, of all the tables, whether it's Parliament, the judiciary, the executive, the private sector, then we are going to see these inequities. And so my job, if I had to say it in one word for me, is a bridge. I hope I've answered your question, and I can't remember the second part of it. What the government is doing. So we are members of Parliament. We're not part of the cabinet, but I think I've already alluded to the Royal Commission and all the recommendations which have all been adopted. Government recognises that we need to be very proactive in this space. I think you will see amongst the 65 Labour MPs, we're very different people, but we're very aligned in our values. And if there is one value I think that really sums all of us up is inclusion. We are all about inclusion, and that drives so many of our policies, because we know that it's a better society for everybody when everybody is included. It's that simple. So it's not about just doing the right thing, it's about doing the smart thing as well. But I'll stop and let Ibrahim share with you.
Ibrahim, you're mute. You're on mute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now.
Well, yes. I think Ingrid very much covered everything. She has stolen everything that I wanted to say. But look, like just Ingrid said, and my, I've said in my maiden speech that one of the reasons is that in the Parliament, one of the things that I wanted to focus and achieve is a combat racism and the fight for equality. Well, I think we have come really, really far as a country, as a nation, but I think we still have a long way to go. If you look into the employment opportunity, for example, among ethnic people, a lot of young, educated, talented, smart young men and women are wandering around. They can't get job, and often because it's because of their names, it's because of their dress code or face or for whatever reason. And I think that's really sad. It's really sad because these people call this country home, and they can't get the equal opportunity that others get as well. So the best thing they do is they either do some low-paid jobs or drive Uber or go to Australia. So one of the things that I wanted to say is that people are just getting treated as equal. These people are as productive as any New Zealanders. They are as proud as any New Zealanders about this country, and they love this country as much as others do as well. So that's one thing. So I think I will start with the government's commitment to equality, social cohesion, and inclusion. I think one of the ways the government responded was by establishing the the Minister of Ethnic Communities. I think that was a significant step to giving the ethnic people really a voice, a minister that can. Well, at the moment she is not in cabinet, but she's a minister, and she is someone who put things on the cabinet table on behalf of the ethnic communities. We've got the CE who's going to who's sitting down with other chief executives and speak up for ethnic people. I think that's one commitment. After the sad incident in Christchurch, the 44 real recommendations, the vast majority of those recommendations are all focused on social cohesion and the inclusion. I think every recommendation eventually go around and come back to this point as well. So the government is 100% committed. Quite a few groups and subgroups have been set up. They're already underway. The Minister Little, as a coordinating minister, is overlooking this volume of work with Minister Radhakrishnan, supported by Minister Radhakrishnan. So I think we've got the leadership that really, truly, genuinely believe in diversity and making this country more diverse and giving people equal opportunity. Look into our parliament. Our parliament is one of the most diverse parliaments in the history of this country, but mainly through the Labour Party. And we've got, gender-wise, we've got one of the most, I think we are 54% women in our caucus. And we've got eight MPs, I think, who call themselves ethnic. And Ingrid is one of us. And I want to acknowledge Ingrid for the expertise, for the co-op that she brings on our ethnic caucus table. So the ethnic caucus is committed 100% in supporting in advancing the interest of the ethnic communities. There is a lot of work underway now. There is a lot of planning. I just want to say that watch this space. But at the moment, though, I think while we have come a long way, we still have we're not even close yet. So as a politicians, we might be the face of the government or the parliament. But I think as community leaders, also you have a role to play. I want to acknowledge the Pakistani Association for the work that you have done. I've been watching you, Asim, your live program since last year, before the election, before I even became an MP. I'm a big fan of the work that you do, feeding vulnerable people during the lockdowns. I think that really genuinely contributes to making New Zealand a better place for all of us. And also, you guys are good ambassadors of us as a Muslims. And I think that's really commendable. But in saying that, while a lot of steps have been taken, a lot of things have been achieved, but we still have a long way to go, and we are up for it. We're working on it.
Can I also just do a shout out to the Pakistani, His Excellency Murad Ashraf Janjua, because he is one of the most active of the High Commissioner's ambassadors. I've had quite regular contact, and he came down to Dunedin last year actually for the first PANZ Pakistani Day. So you've got a really great person there who's advocating for your organisation as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you both for your kind words. And these programs are kind of a bridging from the parliament to our local community. So this program are helping as well. So I request all my viewers, if they got any question, they can post on our Facebook page, and we will ask directly to you. So my question to both of you,
May I just make one more point in terms of things that are happening? One of the things that was very present for me over the last week or so has been that we have new laws in place which can stop dangerous videos being shown on certain media platforms. And so the police had that at their fingertips ready to use and ultimately didn't need to use it. It's really brought home to me the importance of having that legislation. The other one that will be coming through the House probably later this year, and there's been a lot of discussion about it, is hate speech. And again, I think the incidents of the last week or so, and this is not just around what happened at the school, but also some of the vitriol that I've seen on social media levelled both at the survivors of the alleged assault, at the alleged culprits, at the school, at other people, has been really unacceptable and really dangerous. And I really see now the need for hate speech. As a journalist, I'm very pro free speech. I see a place for those hate speech laws, but it's really made me understand that in the current environment with social media the way it is, that there is an urgent need for us to act on that, and I'm really proud that our government's doing something about it.
Thank you so much. My next question was also on that media thing. You already kind of touched a little bit. So yes, it's very difficult to control the social media, but when we talk about the established print media and also the TVs, so how we can because with different kind of a heading can spin in their own way. So yes, apart from the social media, these established media houses, how we can, the last there was an incident reported when a man shouted Allahu Akbar in a public space, but the way it was reported, the most of our community, the Muslim community, didn't, we got some sentiments. So apart from the social media, these established media houses, how we can educate them or any kind of interaction with our community to know us a little bit more. So what are your thoughts about? Ingrid, you can ask first, you can tell first, and then we can move to Ibrahim.
Yeah, it's a really good question and a really difficult one. I think my worry with both mainstream and social media is that if a situation like what happened last week is litigated in social media or in the media. I mean, there are media laws and they're sub judice, and the reason for that is to make sure that justice does happen and that neither side is influenced and that justice isn't perverted. Social media changes that dynamic and it makes it much more vulnerable to perversion of the course of justice, and that is why so many of us have been pleading to please try not to comment specifically on this case, because we do want to see justice served for everybody involved, and that means that we have to let the justice system do its thing. With mainstream media, there are media laws, but you're right, there's spin and angles. And, I guess there's a couple of ways. One is to keep things out of the media. That's not necessarily helpful because we want all voices at the table. Possibly one of the most practical things I think that can be done is just to form relationships with journalists, and certainly it's what we do as politicians is we try and have relationships with journalists because we know they're not our friends and we know they're out to catch us, but having a relationship just keeps it a bit safer, and it causes somebody to think, hang on, how am I reporting this? Are those people going to be concerned about the way I'm portraying things? And it gives them pause for thought, whereas if they don't have that relationship, they may not take quite as much care. I also think calling them out when there is a mistake, when rights have been breached, definitely calling people out, whether it's to ring them up, whether it's to write a letter to the editor, whether it's to take them to the press council, the complaints procedure, or even, to sue for defamation or whatever, depending on how much money somebody's got. But holding people to account by calling them out is incredibly important. But it is difficult with journalists, and as politicians, we never know when we speak to the media which way they're going to report the stuff that we say, so we always try and have a relationship.
Are there any rules and regulations they should abide to? And the other thing is that, like the question he asked, that the name of the person was Taylor and he was just saying Allahu Akbar, it does not make him a Muslim or something. It is reported in a way that a Muslim is going to attack a police. How did you actually see that report? What was your first impression when you read about that?
Can I can I first comment on the first question that look, like Ingrid said, this is a tough question. The government, we can't tell the media what to do, what not to do. It's a very difficult space, but at the same time there is opportunity. The last year in Christchurch, as a response, one of the 44 recommendations of the Royal Commission was for the government to facilitate like a conference around to address extremism, violence, and extremism. So there was a conference attended by about 300 people. The Prime Minister was gonna. She couldn't attend because both myself and her were in Auckland and our flights were cancelled. I ended up attending afternoon, but she addressed it through Zoom. So the conference was for about almost 3 days, right? So the media bosses were invited, and a lot of them were in the panel. And a lot of Muslims made it clear that their grievance about the media, their displeasure about the media, the way the media portrayed Muslim Islam and the Muslims. When single incident happened by someone who is attributed to Islam, and then it's all about Islam, right? We have seen in America, when someone commit a crime, in fact, a terror crime, and then it's no one blames the whole race, or no one blames the whole religion, right? But if it's a Muslim, it's the whole religion that takes the blame, and we have seen this over and over, including here in our media. So there was a really opportunity to have a really frank and open discussion. I think a lot of them actually don't really have even a cultural competency, and for many of them was opportunity to hear from the community members, and that was an eye-opening for them, right? And at the conference also, the bosses of the social media giants were invited as well: Facebook, Twitter, and was it YouTube? But anyway, all these social media giants, like they spoke from America, like on through Zoom and stuff. So that is a really good opportunity. While it's a very difficult space, social media definitely complicated the whole things, but there is also opportunity if we can have a discussion. I mean, look at the Christchurch poll, for example. The Prime Minister and the French President, the work they've been doing in this space with Facebook and the others. While it's quite difficult, I think, through educating each other, and as probably other legislations as well, I think we can make life as easy. And but to me, education.
And also having representatives, having people working in the media. I mean, if we look now at a lot of Māori reporting, we have a lot of Māori journalists in mainstream media, and they are doing the reports. So we're seeing a little bit more balance than we saw previously, which led to the stuff apology for some of the terribly biased and racist reporting that had been done previously by that organisation. So I do think seeing ethnic communities and multicultural communities and women and diversity in Parliament, in the judiciary, in the media, in the executive, and in business, all of that is going to make a huge difference.
Thank you very much. My next question to both of you, and Ingrid, you can go first. What is the road forward from here to avoid such traumatic incidents happening, especially in our school? Is it still firefighting, or some concrete steps we will see in the future? And if I've received few calls from here and there, and some women said they are thinking of removing hijab. What is your message to these women?
I'll start with the second part of the message first. The second part of the message for me is that women need to make their own choices about what they do to feel complete in their identity. So that's all I can say. The decision, I can't say to remove or not to remove to feel more safe. I feel it would be sad if they did, but I will never judge somebody for making that decision themselves. It's the same as a woman taking on a husband's last name, or perhaps even taking on an ethnic surname if they're marrying interracially. That is up for that person to decide what they're going to do. In terms of the work that needs to be done, look, there's a huge amount of work to be done, but we want to get stuck in and we want to support to do it. I think it's a challenge, of course, it's urgent, but it's also a huge opportunity, because we have so much diversity in our schools, and everybody benefits from diversity. There's so much more creativity. There's so many studies that show that societies with diversity and inclusion are better off. And so now's our opportunity to do that. And I think it starts with dialogue. It starts with people understanding that they don't know what they don't know, and being open to have the discussions, and then to set up processes to ensure that there's safety, so cultural safety, but also opportunity. So learning about each other's faiths, learning about each other's languages, learning about each other's countries, learning about each other's food, all of that is part of what will make a sense of belonging for everybody, and it will make New Zealand so much richer. So it's a challenge and it's urgent, but it's a fantastic opportunity, and there's so many of us who want to get stuck in, and let's just get to work and get this happening really quickly so we don't see any more of these events again.
Uma, your take on this?
What happened in Dunedin, while it might have highlighted the whole issues, it might not be the only incident, right? I think it's a serious. I think the incident itself was quite serious. I think that's why it managed to sneak out. There are a lot of incidents that doesn't make it to the media. Some of them quite serious, as serious as this one. I know of the incidents that people brought to me, and I even here in Wellington. So I think we always need, our women are always the easy target, because they are the face of the Islam, right? Because of the hijab, because of the dress code, and I think. I think a lot of focus needs to be put in supporting our women, giving them a confidence. And it breaks my heart when I hear that women are planning or even intending to remove their hijab because of the fear of the being targeted. It shouldn't have, because this country belongs to all of us, and we proudly call this country home, and we all deserve it to go on about our business, our daily work, our daily business, and they feel safe and go back home feeling safe to our loved ones. And that's one thing. I think there is no compromise whatsoever at all. And I just want to tell the sisters that who are out of fear intending to remove their hijabs, I just tell them, stay strong, hold your ground, because this is your faith, and stay strong. And one thing I can say is, I think also like individual schools need to take some responsibility. I would like to say that I think I've seen some really good example of some schools taking steps about teaching their children about other cultures, other phases. There are quite a few schools that who have written to me, and some of them even rural. When I did my maiden speech, there is this very wealthy rural school, about year 9, about 7 to 9 students wrote to me letters. And the principal, when I replied to say thank you, and she actually asked me if I could visit them. So I went all the way to Manawatu and spent about 2-3 hours with them, had a lunch with them. I spoke about my journey. I spoke about my culture. I spoke about Islam. They were quite grateful, and they were blown away. They have never met someone like me for the first time. Hundreds of students went down to Ararapa at the invitation from my friend MP, Kira McNulty. We had 3-4 hours of a fantastic time visiting 2 schools and talking to kids. Schools need to take some steps and actually put some resources and the time and the effort into teaching their students. And then there is other things that the overall ministry can do by putting more resources. And I think even some schools need some like targeted support, for example, maybe even provide them with some people with cultural expertise and the stuff, so they can, at the end of the day, there is no one way of addressing this issue, right? I think education is key, and to do this, I think obviously it's the resources, it's a will, it's resources from government overall, but also will from individual schools to actually do the right thing about these things.
Ibrahim, Ingrid, please continue.
Sorry, I think we just dropped in and out a bit because I'm on a boat. I just wanted to add that one of the pieces of work that I've been doing, and we should be getting an update fairly soon in the next few weeks, is around uniforms at school and cultural safety and gender safety with uniforms. And this arose as a result of actually my own son, before I became an MP, had a really terrible time at his school. He had a Pacifica tamoko on his arm, and the school made him cover it up with a bandage initially, and then said he couldn't wear it. And he said that was part of his identity, and it led to a big debate. I had a similar thing happen to somebody in my electorate, and as a result, I reached out to the Race Relations Office, and we had a roundtable with a number of students who shared their experience about cultural safety and also gender safety. And it was clear that it's different for different students at different schools, and also from different cultures and different races and different genders and different sexual orientations. So I'm expecting to see some guidelines coming out at some point, and we'll be launching those. And I'm really proud of that piece of work, and I think it's really important because that is part of the school environment, and that is part of what can allow people to feel safe in their identity. So if we can't even get that right, then it's going to lead to problems as well.
And also, can I add one thing to Asim? I think as parents in the communities also, I think we need to engage with the schools as well, with principals, teachers, and the school of trustees. We need to talk to them about why our girls are actually wearing hijab. We have to tell them, because the perception out there is a lot of ignorance about this. The perception out there is that Muslims actually force their women and their girls wearing hijab. We need to show them that's not the case. we've got to engage. For example, I've seen really good example of here in Newtown where Muslim parents are sitting in the board of trustees, and that just makes a huge difference. So I think as the parents, as the communities, we need to engage the schools, and we need to actually sometimes share thoughts and ideas that we have with them, because that's also going to make a lot of difference.
My question to both of you, and very short answer I'm expecting. Do you encourage the people or student or anyone in the public space, wherever this incident happened, report immediately? Because we know that it is very much underreported, and in our communities it is kind of a taboo that report and coming out of the media. No one want to highlight it, like being an international with such kind of a mention with the names and with everything. So do you encourage our community, God forbid anything happen, to come out immediately?
So if I may start, my thing is absolutely yes, call it out always. And that's where process is really important, because if the correct process is in place and somebody somebody who it's reported to recognises that there is an element of cultural bias or racial attack or whatever, they will then elevate it. The process should enable them, or should empower them to elevate it, so that it's taken incredibly seriously. Those processes don't happen by themselves. People need to have intercultural competence to understand and to recognise when that's happening, and also the people who have been allegedly assaulted or attacked or had that happen to them need to also communicate that they believe that was a basis for it, and if they felt that that was happening, it clearly usually was happening. And so sometimes they need to educate those who are in higher positions of authority to say, even though this might look like a simple case of XYZ, there's another layer to this, and therefore it's really important. The processes should be in place, and I would say those processes need to be safe, so that people don't need to go to the media and don't need to try and litigate things outside of the safe processes, which are safe for everybody. And that's why we need those really important processes to happen everywhere, including in our schools.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I think though, I mean, if sometimes the schools need to be given opportunity to take some serious steps, and what we're hearing now is that there was a trend, there was a pattern. The girls were harassed for a long time. Then again, I don't want to comment on this specific incident, but if your complaints and your police are lying on a deaf ears, and then of course we have to call them out, and they have to be reported. Otherwise, if they are just brushed under the rugs and then under the carpets, and then it's only going to get worse unless we call these incidents out, and then it's not going to get any easier. But in saying that, I think schools have a responsibility to deal with this, and some of them, they have their own system, their own mechanisms of dealing with this specific issues. But if they are given opportunity and they haven't taken that, and then they need to be reported and they need to be called out.
And there are Ministry of Education guidelines too around all of these things. And so, what I would like to see from an independent review is whether those Ministry of Education guidelines in this particular case were fit for purpose. Do we need to be looking as a society at Ministry of Education guidelines, and are they, when were they made, and have they moved with the times? Because sometimes there's a bigger context. So I think we've got to be very careful about pointing a finger at the school in this particular case. There may have been patterns, but there may also be limits on what the schools are able to do, given some of the rules and processes that they in turn have to deal with. So I think all of that should be looked at independently, and that's what I'm really hoping that we'll see in this case.
Thank you very much, Ingrid. There are a few viewers who wanted to ask some questions, so I'll take few questions from them as well. The first question is from Hanif Kazi, and it's from you. Can we create a list of recommendations on preventing race-related bullying in the school? Ingrid, the question is to you. And
it's
Hanif,
to me.
Yeah, to yourself. And Hanif Kazi is asking, can we create a list of recommendations on preventing race-related bullying in schools?
Yes, I think so. And actually, some of the meetings I've attended, some of the girls themselves and the community members from the school that was involved in this particular alleged incident had a number of ideas, because the communities usually do know what the solutions are themselves. So I hope that those ideas will be looked at really closely. And I think, schools should work with communities, and those solutions and processes should be co-created together so that there's buy-in from everybody and everybody's on the same page. It shouldn't be something just imposed by the school.
I would have told the schools who might have their policy of rules and regulations against racism and the bullying. But if they don't, and then definitely we need to have a system in place where we can protect people. When you are vulnerable and or stranger in this country, and it's quite tough.
But even then, when the policy is there, it's about recognising it, isn't it? Recognising when racism is happening, because often it is happening, but people may not be seeing that it's happening unless it's called out. And I think that's the tricky part, is to be able to recognise it. And it goes back to Ibrahim's point about education and cultural competence, and education.
So the answer is really, in short, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Rizwan, are you going to ask the next question from?
I think regarding the travel restriction, Asim, you want to ask anything?
Yes. Ibrahim, this is not related to this incident. We wanted to cover some other aspects of the things happening within the New Zealand. So one is related to the ethnic communities, is regarding the COVID travel restriction on some countries, and travelers from others can travel to PANZ as early as March. Why this is a discrimination? It is a sign of institutionalized discrimination. What is the message government is giving? Some countries can only travel after October. Like my parents, if I want to invite them, they can only be in this country after October or November. But there are other countries who are entitled to come before that.
Yeah. So you are referring to visa waiver countries that's been given.
Yes.
So there is a 5 phase of the reopening plan is on 5 phase, and the first one being on 27th of February, and that's only New Zealanders too, and from Australia, and then it goes all the way up to. I don't think there is any. We have to be careful about how we describe things, and I think there is no intention of discrimination whatsoever here. This was the policy that was put together under a very, very difficult circumstance, and the officials and the ministers who made this decision are making these decisions based on whatever information that's put in front of them. So, and there has always been a policy in this country, which was a long-standing policy. The difference between people who come from visa waiver, I don't necessarily agree with that, but this has been the process in place for a long time. The way that we treat what we call visa waiver countries and the non-visa waiver countries, right? So based on that, and based on advices and information that was available to them, they made this decision, right? And at some point, we need to open. If we wanted to open, we have to be careful about how we open, because at the end of the day, the intention behind all this is not to overwhelm to protect our health system. If our health system is overrun, because we don't have a strong health infrastructure in this country, and the 9 years of national government have run down the health system. So since 2017, we have been pouring money into this, making sure that the health system is now it's actually go back to a stage where we can say that the system can cope and is operating well, but there is a limit. So we've got to be careful, because if we open tomorrow the country and millions of people start coming from all over the world, and that we will never be able to control the number of cases, and our health system will collapse. A lot of people will die. So there is always these are hard choices the government had to make. It's not because we wanted to discriminate, for example, Pakistan, Eritrea, or Chile versus the European country. There is the waiver, what we call visa waiver country. It's the system that's been operating for a long time. And I don't know, we might look into it in the future. It might change, but for now, it's been in place. So based on a very limited information and information that we have, we had to make the decision. We have to make the call. Look, at the end of the day, it's a best interest of the country to open the borders once, and having all this millions of tourists in this country, that's going to bring a lot of jobs, millions, billions of dollars of money, and it's going to be help our economy as well. But at the same time, we've got to balance this. Our health system is vulnerable, it's weak, and we've got to protect it. We don't want to people, we've got a very aging population. We have done a fantastic job in the last 2 years. We have saved life. Our economy is strong as it can get. 3.2 unemployment, which was one of, I think in the 30 plus years, one of the lowest. And that's because of the approach that we have taken. The best response to this pandemic was a health-based response. And that's exactly what we have done with reconnecting in New Zealand. I know that it's not going to make everyone happy, but this is the best choice, the best option.
Could I just add to Ibrahim's point too, that family reunification and closed borders is one of the hardest things that we have seen through the pandemic, and we absolutely feel for the communities and the families that have been affected by this. It has been incredibly difficult. At the end of the day, we are in a pandemic, and it's one of the realities of the pandemic, but we know that it has been so difficult for you, and it has really been a big part of what we've talked about at Ethnic Caucus as well.
Right. Just to clear up on this one, we understand it is not the institutionalized discrimination, but the laymen, the people who actually approach us and ask all these questions, and they wanted us to put this question in front of you. So we thought that it's better to take their words and put it in. I know, I understand that this is a kind of a hard question or a harsh language, and I'm sorry for that. I'll ask this one.
No, listen, I'm glad you asked it. I'm just trying to make sure that people like understand the context of the whole thing. But look, I think Ingrid said it well. I really feel it for people. I mean, I've been processing to bring my brother, because I live lonely in this country. I don't have any family member, and as a quota refugee, I'm entitled to bring one of my family members. And my brother, all his process was done, and he's ready to come. But hello, he can't come because of COVID-19. He's just waiting in a strange country, waiting for my own financial support, frustrated, angry. But this is all the price that we have to pay to keep the 5 million people, team of 5 million people safe. And in doing so, we have done fantastic. We are almost there. It's about 6-7 months, and we will be open.
So talking about that, keeping the 5 million people safe. So what is your message about the booster campaign? We know that, as long as quickly as we go for the booster campaign and we will able to open. So quick, short message to the booster campaign.
Starting with Ingrid.
Look, if you haven't been boosted, please get boosted. You're almost there if you've got your double vax. We know that boosting, it significantly reduces the chance of the spread of the virus, and it significantly reduces your chance of being hospitalized. So please just get boosted for your sake and for your community's sake.
Can I first say how proud actually I am of our ethnic community? I think we were probably like the first people to hit 90, and the first people to hit 95, the first people to, we are almost 100%. I think we still have some issues, for example, with subgroups of communities, like, for example, my own African community is still behind. But I think as an ethnic community, we have done a brilliant job. I think we can all be proud of that. So now we need to repeat that with a booster. I think the evidence overseas shows that if you are boosted, and then you're highly likely to get it like a mild. People don't even feel it. I've got friends that their family members overseas, they boosted and they've got Omicron. It was almost mild. You don't get hospitalized. So as you can see now, the cases are increasing. Today it's a bit scary to see 2,500 cases in one day. It's not something that we use it in this country. We use it in this country, but we know that it's coming. But we also prepare. People don't need to panic. because the government is prepared for this. But what we need to do is to protect ourselves, people around us, and we all need to be boosted. So I cannot emphasize enough that if you haven't done it, and if your second dose was 3 months ago, and if you are 18 and above, please get boosted. And also make sure that your children are getting vaccinated as well, because that is how. So the first phase of vaccination, we mission was a completion, and we have done a really good job. And now we're gonna complete the mission in success. So what we need to do is everyone needs to get boosted. I think if we can hit about 90+% boosted, and then we are done and dusted, and this will pass too.
Thank you very much, Omar and Ingrid. This was the last question. And if you would like to add something, if you want to give some message to our community, you are more than welcome. The stage is yours.
Oh, I'd just like to say thank you for listening in. I think that these few days now, these weeks, have been incredibly difficult for many people around New Zealand. We've seen what's happened in Dunedin, and we've seen on social media a lot of vitriol come out, which, to be honest, hasn't been very helpful. And I really hope that people will respect the process so that Huda and those girls can get the justice that they deserve, and the school can get the support that it needs, and the ministry can look at its processes as well, so that everybody can move to safety and belonging. But also what's happening with the protests at Parliament. It's been really difficult. I feel grateful that we live in a country where there is freedom of speech and freedom of protest, but lines have been crossed, and I think it's now time for those people to leave. So it has been a trying time. Please just remember to smell the roses, have fun with your families, be grateful for the small things, and we will all get through this together. It will pass. We just need to work as a team together, and thank you so much for everything that you've done as part of the team of 5 million.
I just want to go back to comment I always make, and that is the first that I was asked if I wanted to go to New Zealand. This was in Sudan when I was being interviewed by an immigration officer, and he told me it's one of the safest countries in the world. And based on that, I didn't even want to ask another question. I said that's where I want to go, and that was a little bit shaken during the March 15 attacks. As I watched the attack was in display in the horror, and we were all watching on social media, and I thought this is not the safe country that I've chosen anymore. And for a few hours that was, and then I have seen Kiwis basically wrapping their arms around us and surrounded by love and support, and the rest is history. And look, that's really also basically re-strengthened my faith in New Zealand. So I just want to tell people out there that when they see this incident, there'll be a lot of people who doubt themselves, like they might be doubt about the sense of belonging to this country. I just don't want to. I just want to tell them that look, New Zealand is as safe as it's been. Yes, we do have issues. Yes, we do have incidents like this. We do have issues with racism. We have a long way to go, but this still remains one of the safest countries. And every Muslim in this country who calls New Zealand home is proud of this country. So they should be. And this is our country, and we love it as much as any other New Zealanders. So I just want to tell them that don't let this incidents kind of shake your face in this country. And this is our country, and we love it. We're gonna get through this. We're gonna deal with this, and hopefully, the minister and all of us, we're gonna get involved. We're gonna put things in place so our schools are safe to all of our kids, no matter what background they are from. It doesn't matter what they are from, what they look like, how they dress. And we want to make sure that they go to the school safe and they go back to their loved ones safe as well.
We are really a few seconds short, 1 hour, so our time was only 30 minutes. So on behalf of our President Naveed Hamid and all our PANZ Executive Committee and our community, I would really like to thank Ibrahim Omer and Ingrid for your time and for the fruitful and the candid discussion have so far. Thank you so much, and we are looking forward to see you again in some other program. Definitely not on this kind of a topic, but with other topics.
Something on a lighter note.
Inshallah, thank you for the work that you do, and I will always remain as big as a fan as I have been of you guys and the work that you do. and please pass my love to all members of the Pakistani community and the brother Naveed and others. And thank you so much for having us. It was this is my second time and talking to
Yeah.
you guys, and hopefully I'll be looking forward to further discussions as well.
Thank
Okay,
you.
Ibrahim.
Sorry, I've appeared twice. I'll say goodbye twice.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you,
Thank you
Ingrid.
Thank
very
you very
much.
much. Thank you very
Thank you so
much.
much.
And indeed,
Yeah.
it was an
Thank
honor to have you both on our program. And I hope we have justified the questions and answer questions to the incident. And we tried to cover as much as we can. Obviously, we had some harsh questions as well. We went straight as well. So I hope you like the program. And if you still have any questions, you are more than welcome to email us panz@gmail.com, and I will shoot these questions to them, and we'll have the answers for you these questions. Thank you very much. मेरा ख्याल है अगले प्रोग्राम के मरले की तरफ बढ़ते हैं. थोड़ा हमारा टाइम ओवर चला गया. हम 40-45 मिनट की बात कर रहे थे. अनफॉर्चुनेटली हम कुछ क्वेश्चंस जो फेसबुक के ऊपर आए वो भी नहीं ले सके. माफी के दरख्वास्तगार हैं. कुछ डिस्कशन इस किस्म की थी और 2 लोग थे हमारे साथ. हम चाहते थे कि उनको पूरा वक्त मिले और उसके साथ हम उनकी बात अपने सुनने वाले तक पहुंचा सकें. जो इंसिडेंट था वो काफी ऐसा था जिसके बारे में हम बात करना चाहते थे, जिसको हम कंडेम करना चाहते थे, जिसके हवाले से हम सपोर्ट का इजहार करना चाहते थे अपनी बहनों के साथ. जैसे उमर ने कहा कि आप बिल्कुल ना डरिए, बिल्कुल इस चीज को जो है, और इंग्रिड ने भी कहा कि ये आपकी अगर आइडेंटिटी है तो कीप द आइडेंटिटी. आई डोंट वांट यू टू दिस ब्रिंग अ लॉट ऑफ डाइवर्सिटी विद इन दिस सोसाइटी. तो रिजवान, अगला मरहला क्या है हमारा?
जी अब बिल्कुल बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट प्रोग्राम था. सॉरी फॉर ऑल हमारे व्यूअर्स का, थोड़ा सा हम ज्यादा जा रहे हैं. तो अब हमारा डिजिटल इंक्लूजन का एक प्रोग्राम हमारा चल रहा है डनीडन में, और उसके लिए हम चलेंगे हमारे नेशनल कोऑर्डिनेटर हैं मोहम्मद जुनेद अता भाई के पास. वो उनके बारे में थोड़ा बताएंगे हमारे पूरे व्यूअर्स को. अस्सलाम वालेकुम जुनेद भाई, कैसे हैं आप? ठीक ठाक? वेलकम टू द प्रोग्राम.
वालेकुम अस्सलाम. आप बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आसिम और रिजवान, आपने मुझे अपने प्रोग्राम में इनवाइट किया.
रिजवान, सबसे पहले तो माफी चाहते हैं. आप ऑलमोस्ट कोई 30 मिनट से हमें वेट कर रहे थे और बड़े हौसले से सुन रहे हैं. उम्मीद करते हैं कि आपको जो हमारा इससे पहले डिस्कशन थी वो आपको ठीक लगी होगी और हमने जस्टिफाई किया होगा. इसके अलावा हम आगे बढ़ते हैं और ये पूछते हैं कि जो हमारा ये जो नया प्रोग्राम आपने अभी स्टार्ट किया है, इसके हवाले से हमारे जो सुनने वाले हैं और देखने वाले हैं उनको क्या बताना चाहेंगे?
जी बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. सबसे पहले तो मैं आप लोगों को बताऊंगा कि ये बहुत ही एक्साइटमेंट है हमारी पूरी टीम को और जितने भी लोग इसमें इन्वॉल्व हैं. पाकिस्तान एसोसिएशन ऑफ न्यूजीलैंड ने जो है वो प्रोग्राम की डिलीवरी स्टार्ट कर दी है. हमारा जो पहला डिलीवरी थी वो 19 फरवरी को, यानी कल, एक वर्कशॉप हमने कंडक्ट किया है ड्यूनेडन में. ये जो प्रोग्राम है ये न्यूजीलैंड गवर्नमेंट की जो डिजिटल इंक्लूजन का विजन है उसके अकॉर्डिंग है. और अगर विजन की बात करें तो उसमें ऐसा है कि जितने भी लोग हैं न्यूजीलैंड के अंदर वो पार्टिसिपेट करें, कंट्रीब्यूट करें और बेनिफिट हासिल करें डिजिटल वर्ल्ड से. इस प्रोग्राम को डेवलप करने में काफ़ी टाइम लगा, काफ़ी इसमें मेहनत लगी, रिव्यू करना और उसके बाद फिर दोबारा से काफ़ी आइट्रेशन चलती रहीं. बिलाखिर कुछ दिनों पहले ही हम लोगों ने इसको फाइनल कर दिया था. ये जो प्रोग्राम है इसके लिए हम लोगों ने वेन्यू हायर किया है, हमने एक्सपीरियंस ट्रेनर हायर किए हैं और इस प्रोग्राम को डिलीवर कर रहे हैं हम लोग एज पर मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एथनिक कम्युनिटी का जो फ्रेमवर्क है उसके अकॉर्डिंग. तो इसमें मेनली हम लोग कर ये रहे हैं कि हमने जो अपना पूरा कोर्स है वो इस तरह से डिज़ाइन किया है कि उसको 3 पार्ट्स में हमने डिवाइड कर दिया है. पहला पार्ट वो है जिसमें हम फंडामेंटल ऑफ इलेक्ट्रॉनिक डिवाइसेस बताते हैं स्टूडेंट्स को. ऐसे लोग भी हैं जिनको बेसिक्स नहीं पता है. तो अगर मैं थोड़ा सा और उसको बताता चलूँ, ये बेसिकली इसमें जो मेन ऑडियंस है ना उसकी रिक्वायरमेंट भी मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ एथनिक कम्युनिटी से आएगी. तो ऐसे लोग जैसे जिनके पास नॉलेज कम है वो नॉलेज, और इसके अलावा ऐसे लोग जो रिफ्यूजीज़ हैं जिनको 5 साल से कम हो गया है न्यूजीलैंड के अंदर. इसके अलावा कुछ हमारी ख़वातीन हैं जिनको थोड़ा सा डिजिटल वर्ल्ड से इंटरेक्ट करने में मुश्किल होती है. अक्सर औकात ऐसा होता है कि जो ख़वातीन हैं हमारे घर पे उनकी जो क्रेडेंशियल्स हैं उनके हस्बैंड्स यूज़ कर रहे होते हैं. तो दैट इज़ उसको ज़रा इंडिपेंडेंट करने के लिए. तो उसके लिए जो है मैंने सबसे पहले मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ सोशल डेवलपमेंट, इसके अलावा इनलैंड रेवेन्यू और इसका रियलमी, इन सबको मैंने कांटेक्ट किया और उनसे मैंने पूछा कि आप लोगों को क्या-क्या डिफ़िकल्टीज़ होती हैं। उन्होंने अपनी सारी डिफ़िकल्टीज़ जो बताई, उसके हिसाब से फिर हमने ये प्रोग्राम डिज़ाइन किया। तो इसमें सबसे पहले मैं आपको बता रहा था कि इलेक्ट्रॉनिक डिवाइसेज़ के फंडामेंटल्स हैं, उसके अलावा ऑनलाइन सर्विसेज़ है हो गई, जैसे जो गवर्नमेंट की सर्विसेज़ हैं, और या फिर किसी को शॉपिंग करनी है, किसी को अगर बैंक ऑनलाइन यूज़ करना है, एवरीथिंग नाउ इट इज़ ऑनलाइन। सो ये उसमें कवर किया है। इसके अलावा सोशल मीडिया को कवर किया है। इसके अलावा जो हमारा थर्ड मॉड्यूल है,
मैं माजरत चाहता हूँ, सॉरी आपको मैंने थोड़ा कट किया। थोड़ा हम बैक पे थोड़ा पीछे चलते हैं। तो डिजिटल इंक्लूजन एक हमारा दो वर्ड है, तो इसका थोड़ा बताएं कि अगर कोई बंदा डिजिटली अवेयर नहीं है, ठीक है, और वो न्यूजीलैंड की सोसाइटी में आता है, तो उसको क्या डिसएडवांटेजेस हो सकते हैं। ओके, एक आदमी किसी भी कम्युनिटी से बिलोंग करता हुआ न्यूजीलैंड में पहुंच गया है और उसको हम डिजिटली अवेयर आप कर रहे हैं, मगर उसके अगर वो अवेयर नहीं है तो किस किस्म के डिसएडवांटेजेस उसकी प्रोग्रेस में, उसकी एजुकेशन में, उसके कारोबार में या उसकी जॉब में, या अगर वो घर पे ही है तो क्या उसको आ सकते हैं। इसकी वजह से ये प्रोग्राम का आगाज हुआ।
एग्जैक्टली तो जैसे मैं आपको अगर एग्जांपल के साथ ये समझाऊं कि अगर कोई शख्स है, वो फॉर इंस्टेंस अगर वो न्यूजीलैंड आया और उसके बाद उसको ड्राइविंग लाइसेंस के लिए जाना है और ड्राइविंग लाइसेंस हासिल करना है। अगर उसके पास इंटरनेशनल ड्राइविंग लाइसेंस है तो उसकी कन्वर्जन का एक तरीका है, और अगर फॉर एग्जांपल उसके पास नहीं है तो उसका भी एक तरीका है। तो अगर वो लाइक लेट्स सपोज के अगर वो नहीं कर पा अगर वो डिजिटली जो है साउंड नहीं होगा और उसको डिजिटल सर्विसेज को यूज़ नहीं कर सकेगा, देन इट विल बी वेरी डिफिकल्ट फॉर हिम टू मैनेज हिज एक्टिविटीज़। देन आप आ जाओ बैंक की तरफ। बैंक में अगर आ जाओ तो हर चीज़ जो है आजकल ऑनलाइन पेमेंट्स होती हैं, ठीक है। इसके अलावा बैंक में अगर आपको कोई स्टेटमेंट चाहिए तो आप बैंक से ऑनलाइन ले सकते हो, यू डोंट नीड टू गो बैक टू द बैंक अगेन। इसके साथ-साथ अब क्योंकि कोविड के वक़्त में सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम ये था कि हम लोगों को इंटरैक्ट नहीं होना था फिज़िकली जो है वो, तो उसके लिए आया ऑनलाइन शॉपिंग। अगर उसको ऑनलाइन शॉपिंग का अंदाज़ा नहीं है, ठीक है, तो फिर इट विल बी वेरी डिफ़िकल्ट कि वो, क्योंकि गवर्नमेंट बोलती है कि आप जो है फिज़िकली इंटरैक्ट ना करें। तो अगर ऑनलाइन शॉपिंग करने का पता हो तो उसके उसको बेनिफिट्स भी हैं, क्योंकि आप कंपेयर कर सकते हो प्राइसेस। लाइक फॉर एग्जांपल आपको पता चलेगा डाउनटाउन में क्या प्राइस है या फिर पैक एंड सेव में क्या प्राइस है, यू कैन कंपेयर, ठीक है। और बहुत सारे बेनिफिट्स हैं। आपको घर बैठे डिलीवरी हो जाती है। इस तरीके से जो डिजिटल इंक्लूजन को का जो प्रोग्राम है उसको डिज़ाइन इस तरीके से किया है कि इसमें बेसिक फंडामेंटल्स सारे कवर किए हैं, और इसमें
सही।
काफ़ी टाइम हमने लगाया। जी। और एक और चीज़ मैं बताना चाह रहा था, आखिर चीज़ जो थी वो साइबर सिक्योरिटी है। साइबर सिक्योरिटी में हम लोगों ने ये कवर किया है कि जैसे फॉर एग्जांपल एक कोई भी शख्स है और उसको एक ईमेल पॉपअप होती है, तो उसमें बताया गया है कि किस तरीके से आइडेंटिफ़ाई करना है कि कौन-सी ईमेल स्कैम है, ठीक है? और किस तरीके से उन चीज़ों से बचा जा सकता है, ऑनलाइन फ्रॉड से। और उसके अलावा और भी प्राइवेसी सेटिंग्स किस तरह से कौन-सी क्या होती हैं, किसको किस तरह से मैनेज किया जाएगा। So it's a very good program, or I really encourage people to enroll in this program. अभी हमारा डिनेडन में हमने इसको कर दिया है एग्जीक्यूट। नाउ नेक्स्ट प्लान इज अवर नेल्सन। नेल्सन में 5th मार्च को हमारा प्रोग्राम डिलीवर होगा। देन we have a plan to deliver in Waikato and then Napier and in various regions in Auckland.
ठीक हो गया। इसमें शमूलियत का क्या तरीकाकार है, इस वक्त कितने स्टूडेंट्स हैं जो शामिल हो चुके हैं, और ऑकलैंड में क्यों नहीं स्टार्ट किया गया इसको? 3 क्वेश्चन है इकट्ठे जी। तो
अच्छा,
शमूलियत का
इसमें
तरीकाकार, कितने
या
स्टूडेंट्स हैं, और ऑकलैंड में क्यों नहीं स्टार्ट किया जा रहा?
जी, शमूलियत का तरीकाकार उसमें ये है कि सबसे पहले हम लोग रीजन वाइज़ इसको एग्ज़ीक्यूट कर रहे हैं। इसकी वजह ये है कि हमारी थोड़ी-सी टीम जो है उनमें उसको स्ट्रक्चर ऐसा है। तो उसका तरीका ये है कि जब हम लोग डिसाइड करते हैं कि हम किसी रीजन में इसको एग्ज़ीक्यूट करने वाले हैं, तो फिर वहाँ पे हम उसको पब्लिसिटी उसकी करते हैं। उस पब्लिसिटी हमारे व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप पे होती है, हमारे फेसबुक पेज पे होती है, हम मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ इतनी कम्युनिटीज़ को इन्फॉर्म करते हैं। इसके अलावा हम लोग इसकी पब्लिसिटी रेडियो के साथ भी कर रहे हैं। जैसे अभी रिसेंटली हमने एक प्रोग्राम किया डिनेडिन में एफएम 105.4 में, तो उस पे वो एक पॉडकास्ट था, उसमें हम लोगों ने लोगों को बताया, उसके बाद हमारा अच्छा बड़ा फीडबैक आया और लोगों ने रजिस्टर किया। देन ऑकलैंड में मैं आपका जो सवाल था वो ऑकलैंड में हमने इसलिए अभी नहीं किया है क्योंकि हम लोग चाह रहे हैं कि और रीजन से ज़रा एक क्योंकि ऑकलैंड की पॉपुलेशन ज़्यादा है और उसमें ज़्यादा पोटेंशियल है, तो हम लोग चाहते हैं कि दूसरे रीजन से ज़रा इनपुट आ जाए और उसके बाद उसके फीडबैक के अकॉर्डिंग अपने प्रोग्राम को अगर मॉडिफाई करना चाहें तो मॉडिफाई कर सकते हैं, ताकि ज़्यादा लोग जो है उसको बेनिफिट से हासिल कर सकें। जी
जिनेश भाई, ये थोड़ा बताएं कि जो मोड ऑफ इंस्ट्रक्शन है, जो लैंग्वेज है, वो उसमें अगर आप डिजिटल इंक्लूजन की बात करें, बहुत शुक्रिया, आपने बड़ा अच्छे एग्जांपल से इसकी अहमियत को आपने बताया पहले। तो अगर लैंग्वेज उसकी इंग्लिश में होगी या किस लैंग्वेज में होता है, और इसकी कॉस्ट क्या है? अगर मैं आना चाह रहा हूँ तो क्या कॉस्ट होगी इसकी?
ओके, इसका जो मोड ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन है वो इंग्लिश है, ठीक है। पहली बात ये क्योंकि इंग्लिश इज़ द कॉमन लैंग्वेज फॉर एवरीवन इन न्यूजीलैंड, ठीक है। और दूसरी बात ये कि ये जो दूसरा सवाल आपका था कि इसको किस तरीके से इसमें इनरोल होंगे और क्या मोड ऑफ कम्युनिकेशन कैसा रहेगा, तो उसमें क्या है कि हम लोगों ने ट्रेनर्स हायर किए हैं, तो अपनी कम्युनिटी या अब वाइडर कम्युनिटी से हम लोगों ने देखा है पोटेंशियल ट्रेनर्स कौन से हैं, उनकी सीवीज़ को इवैल्यूएट किया है और देखा है उनका प्रायर एक्सपीरियंस कैसा रहा है टीचिंग में। तो उसके अकॉर्डिंग फिर हम लोग उनको देखते हैं, दे आर पेड ट्रेनर्स, तो हम उनको पे भी करते हैं। ओके, तो ये है हमारा। और आप कुछ तीसरा सवाल आप
फीस
कुछ
उन्होंने
पूछ रहे
पूछा था
थे?
कि फीस कितनी है, अगर मैंने
या
मिस नहीं किया।
इट्स या इट्स अ फ्री ऑफ कॉस्ट। तो सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ ये है, और कोई भी इसको ज्वाइन कर सकता है और रजिस्टर करें, हम लोग उनको देखेंगे कौन स्टूडेंट है कौन लर्नर है, देन वी विल कांटेक्ट देम और उनको एक जब कोर्स कंप्लीट हो जाएगा देन वी विल आल्सो गिव अ सर्टिफिकेट, सो इट्स अ प्रूफ कि दे हैव अटेंडेड दिस कोर्स एंड because eventually we are going to report uh, this to back to ministry of ethnic community, तो उसके लिए सारी documentation ये वो सारा it's a long lengthy procedure, so our plan is to deliver all the courses in almost all regions by May or maximum by June, and then immediately we will submit a report to ministry of ethnic communities.
बिल्कुल ठीक होगा। मेरा आखिरी क्वेश्चन है, सबसे पहले तो मैं कहूँगा कि आप लोग मुबारकबाद के मुस्तहिक हैं कि इस बारे में सोचना, क्योंकि बहुत सारे ऐसे लोग हैं जो कि डिजिटली अवेयर नहीं हैं, उनको पता नहीं है। स्पेशली हमारी जो हाउस होल्ड वुमेन्स हैं, सब कुछ औरतें हैं जो घर से काम करना चाहती हैं, कुछ सीखना चाहती हैं अगर, तो उनके हवाले से। अच्छा, ये बताइएगा कि क्या ये ऑनलाइन होती हैं क्लासेस या कहीं सेंटर में जाना पड़ता है, और कितने अरसे का कोर्स है ये? कोई 1 महीने का है, हर रोज होगा, कितना टाइम होगा, वो उसके बारे में भी बताइएगा।
अच्छा, सबसे पहले आपका दूसरे सवाल का मैं जवाब दे देता हूँ। ये जो है 3 से 4 घंटे इसका कोर्स है। इस कोर्स में ऐसे मैंने पहले बताया था 3 मॉड्यूल्स हैं, इलेक्ट्रॉनिक डिवाइसेस, ऑनलाइन सर्विसेज एंड सोशल मीडिया और साइबर सिक्योरिटी, ठीक है। तो 3 से 4 घंटे का कोर्स है, डिपेंड करता है कि किधर हम कर रहे हैं। दूसरी बात ये ऑनलाइन कोर्स नहीं है क्योंकि ऑनलाइन में ज़्यादा इंटरेक्टिव नहीं हो पाता है, तो ये इसका हमारा पहला जो एम है, हम इसको फेस टू फेस कर रहे हैं कोविड-19 की जितनी भी रिक्वायरमेंट्स हैं उनको फॉलो करते हुए। तो आवर ग्रुप इज़ नॉट मोर देन 15 स्टूडेंट्स, 15 लर्नर्स। आई एम नॉट यूजिंग स्टूडेंट वर्ड फॉर देम। वेल, तीसरी बात ये है कि जब ये हम लोग डिलीवर कर देंगे, बिकॉज़ इट्स एन ऑनगोइंग प्रोग्राम, ठीक है। तो अब आज 4 लोग सीख रहे हैं, उसके बाद और लोग सीखेंगे, तो उनको सिखाना है, तो उसके लिए हमारा कुछ ऐसा प्लान है कि हम इसको कंटिन्यू करेंगे। इसको ख़त्म, ये प्रोग्राम जब डिलीवर हो जाएगा देन स्टिल वी विल कंटिन्यू, और उसको फिर ऑनलाइन हम लोग कर देंगे। तो उसके
बहुत
डिफरेंट चीज़ें मैं सोच रहा हूँ, अभी डिस्कस कर रहे हैं हम लोग टीम में कि हो सकता है कुछ ऐसा हो जो सेल्फ पेस कोर्स होगा, ठीक है। उसका फिर वो खुद ही स्टूडेंट आएगा और लर्नर आएगा और आके उसको कोर्स को अटेंड करेगा, उसके बाद क्वेश्चन आंसर्स होंगे, उसके बाद फिर वो सर्टिफिकेट उसको मिल जाएगा।
बहुत शुक्रिया।
जुनेद भाई, ये से बहुत ही कमेंडेबल वर्क आप कर रहे हैं, पैंस और आपकी जो पूरी टीम है। तो मैं तो स्टार्ट में एडवांस में आपको बड़ा शुक्रिया अदा कर दूंगा, क्योंकि ये बहुत ही नीड थी इसकी, और ये बहुत ही आप जो आइडेंटिफाइड, जो आपने जो ग्रुप को किया है, जिनको आप ये सर्विस प्रोवाइड है, तो नो डाउट ये लाइफ चेंजिंग एक कोर्स भी हो सकता है कई लोगों के लिए। So thank you
Absolutely.
so much for giving us the information and everything. So obviously सर कम्युनिटी इसके ऊपर आप नजर रखेगी सोशल मीडिया, और जैसे ही इनकी ये कोर्स वगैरह आएगा उनके इलाकों में, उनके एरियाज में, तो डेफिनेटली आपकी पार्टिसिपेशन जरूर बढ़ेगी। थैंक यू
Of
सो मच
course.
जुनैद।
Thank you so much for having me in your program.
थैंक यू।
बड़ा अच्छा लगता है इस किस्म की इनिशिएटिव्स देख कर के पाकिस्तान एसोसिएशन ऑफ न्यूजीलैंड कहाँ से चली और कहाँ पे अब अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह डिजिटल इंक्लूजन एक पहला प्रोग्राम है, और इसके आगे चलकर जैसे उन्होंने साइबर सिक्योरिटी के हवाले से बात की, और इसके अलावा और भी बहुत सारे इनिशिएटिव्स जो पाकिस्तान एसोसिएशन ऑफ न्यूजीलैंड करने जा रही है, तो एक अच्छा चेंज है। आपको क्या लगता है रिजवान?
ये बेहतरीन चेंज है। आई थिंक ये जो कम्युनिटी जो ने पिछले चंद सालों से देखा है कि कम्युनिटी को एक कोहेजन डेवलप हुआ, फिर लीडरशिप आई, फिर नए लोग इसमें शामिल हुए, तो आई थिंक ये सेकंड स्टेप की तरफ गामजन है, एक प्रॉपर मेच्योरिटी की तरफ पाकिस्तान एसोसिएशन ऑफ न्यूजीलैंड जा रही है कि आपस में एक यूनिटी आ गई, सिर्फ एक फंक्शंस और इवेंट तक महदूद नहीं है,
नहीं
बल्कि
है।
लोगों को और वाइडर कम्युनिटी को। आई थिंक ये डिजिटल इंक्लूजन का प्रोग्राम है, ये सिर्फ पाकिस्तानी कम्युनिटी के लिए नहीं है, सारी कम्युनिटीज के लिए, और कोई भी इसमें इन्वॉल्व हो सकता है इसमें ना। तो ये जो सेकंड स्टेप है एजुकेट करना कम्युनिटी को, और ये बहुत ही अच्छा स्टेप है, और मेरा ख्याल है इसके बाद भी जो स्टेप आएंगे और वो नॉट ओनली अपनी कम्युनिटी के लिए बल्कि वाइड कम्युनिटी के लिए भी होंगे।
बेशक। मेरा ख्याल है इसके साथ ही इजाजत चाहें, क्योंकि प्रोग्राम में ऑलमोस्ट 16 मिनट्स ओवर हो गया अपने ड्यूरेशन के साथ। लोग हमें देख रहे हैं, हम जाते जाते उनको कहेंगे थैंक यू वेरी मच। एक टाइम ऐसा भी था कि जब 25 से 30 लोग हमें जुड़े थे, और बहुत सारे ऐसे लोग होंगे जो कि इस प्रोग्राम को लेटर ऑन देखेंगे, और इसकी व्यूअरशिप जो वॉइस ऑफ पांच की व्यूअरशिप है वो थाउजेंड्स के अंदर है। और एक अच्छा इनिशिएटिव है पाकिस्तान एसोसिएशन ऑफ न्यूजीलैंड का कि लोगों को, कम्युनिटीज को कनेक्ट करने का मौका मिलता है पार्लियामेंटेरियंस के साथ, ऐसे लोगों के साथ जो कि उनके बिहाफ पर उनके लिए डिसीजंस लेते हैं। तो हमारी एक फीडबैक है, जैसे अगर आप देखें कि मैंने एक हार्श क्वेश्चन भी पूछा, और वो ऑब्वियसली दिस फीडबैक विल फ्लो टू देम। रिजवान ने बहुत सारे ऐसे क्वेश्चंस पूछे जो कि वो उन्होंने सुने भी होंगे, और वो इस चीज को साथ लेकर भी जाएंगे, और मोहतात भी होंगे कि कम्युनिटी क्या सोच रही है, कम्युनिटी के क्या सेंटिमेंट्स हैं, कम्युनिटी के क्या इमोशंस हैं। तो दे विल ऑब्वियसली मेक देयर पॉलिसीज अकॉर्डिंग टू कम्युनिटी सेंटिमेंट्स। तो पाकिस्तान एसोसिएशन ऑफ न्यूजीलैंड की के बिहाफ पे मैं तमाम सुनने वालों और देखने वालों से इजाजत चाहूंगा।
थैंक यू सो मच एवरीवन। अल्लाह हाफिज।
पाकिस्तान जिंदाबाद।